Highgate is an area in the city of Burnaby that I've grown up in, located in the southeast quadrant of Burnaby. According to this, bordering Edmonds and slightly further away to Metrotown and South Deer Lake Park. This part of the city features many things you typically expect in a town center. Banks, coffee shops, grocery stores, restaurants of many cuisines, and many other services. Notable places include public washrooms and local corner stores, both in very rare and in the North American neighborhood. Highgate is served by 4 bus routes, respectively the 119 along Kingsway, the 106 along Edmonds, and the 133 local to North Burnaby, and the N19 downtown Surrey crosstown.
Before I continue, I should clarify the name Highgate is mainly from the shopping center, and the actual name for the general area is called Middlegate. However, most people just call the entire area Highgate because the shopping center is the main reason to even be here. Personally, the only Highgate I see is a literal high gate. It's a perfect instance of brand power. Notable examples include Kleenex for tissue paper or Band-Aid for a bandage. Anyway, back to the video.
The map of Highgate defined in this map. The entire video project is to show Highgate in the view of a 15-minute city in walking distance from this point on my map.
Highgate has design elements that I find appealing for a 15-minute city. For instance, crosswalks, a staple aspect of roads, are seen as common necessity, also have a hidden design element in the neighborhood. What do these photos have in common? They create a barrier that prevents many deadly encounters for pedestrians and drivers. When people drive, they drive based on the perception of space they have, not really the speed limit. If it's legal or not is not the point. Drivers will drive mainly to what they feel is most comfortable. If we want to have slower speeds, there must be some element to demonstrate the appropriate speed in that stretch of road. When a speed bump is on a crossing, it creates an incentive to slow down, allowing drivers to give the time to observe the crossing and the nearby surroundings for any pedestrians that could be crossing the street. These are especially good in slow street and school zones, considering that children can be unpredictable, and when cars are moving slower, it allows drivers to quickly react, and thus reducing collisions and deaths.
The automobile is the primary way to explore Highgate, but the neighborhood still has multi-use right-of-ways such as Highland Parkway Trail, connecting to the Royal Oak and BC Parkway to Kingsway and Edmund Street, like right over here.
These dedicated right-of-ways are great examples of the livability of Highgate with active transportation options that connect various parts of the city. When these pathways intersect with car traffic, they are good crossing safety measures that prevent dangerous scenarios.
However, there are a few downsides. They can be very narrow and uncomfortably tight trying to pass them. The path has no streetlights and minimal tree shade, so using the path in the subpar conditions is less desirable. Lastly, they are constructed not for the sole purpose of providing trails. Rather, instead, an old interurban right-of-way with high-voltage transmission lines running above. Therefore, they weren't allowed to construct buildings on the land. Lastly, the Highland Park Line Trail has no signs to indicate its existence. Unlike the BC Parkway, there are no informational signs to indicate where the path goes and the name of the path itself. I only recently found out the name on Google Maps, but if I never looked at it, so I did not know the name at all. Adding signage, trees, and lighting will make the quality of use better. The network doesn't cover enough of Highgate. Currently, there is only an east-west partial south connection for active transportation.
My vision for another multi-use pathway would include a path from Kingsway and Sperling, going along this land currently occupied by BC Hydro transmission lines to intersect with Imperial Street, and passing by closely to Morley Elementary, eventually making its way to Malvern Park. After, there are other destinations further apart, such as Lakeview Elementary, Robert Burnaby Park, and maybe in the future, if the bridge exists over Highway 1, Burnby Lake was made, it would allow the nearby housing complexes to access the shops and restaurants way easier. This pathway being built will allow anyone who lives nearby the path to easily access the businesses that they need. You can tell people already use this land currently, albeit technically they are trespassing as stated by these really old signs. Similar implementation in a more urban environment would entice more people to use this conceptual path for their daily needs.
Something I wish the neighborhood would include is more businesses in residential areas. Highgate is relatively okay at this, with some residential dwellings above retail. However, I believe it can take a step further. Currently, all the businesses are close to Kingsway, where many people live in. Once you go a few blocks north, it's all single-family and low-rise apartments. For a true 15-minute city, such a divide between businesses and retail is too big. Going into Burnaby 2050 OCP, which is a huge document outlining the plan, it doesn't show much hope either, as there are no plans to add more retail spaces. Renting retail space is already a huge overhead, especially in Metro Vancouver, when starting a business, and better zoning the spaces in the neighborhood will allow more entrepreneurship and employment opportunities for the nearby residents and the whole city.
Section 3. What's offered? Highgate has lots to offer in its retail, services, and daily needs, with many options available for most. If it were to complete itself as a self-sufficient 15-minute city, it's close, but one of the miscellaneous needs is not available in the area.
This could be a place for higher education, like a high school, college, stationery store, etc.
Fully completing the circle of its expanded urban wants into Highgate will give the true 15-minute city classification.
The next step forward is setting itself apart with a destination that it exclusively offers. I rate this a B.
There are plenty of transportation options in Highgate. SkyTrain connection via Edmund Station allows movement outside of Highgate to more favorable places. Some bus routes providing somewhat frequent local service with some road priority measures and multi-use paths with decent coverage. Sidewalks are the norm for pretty much all the roads in this neighborhood with near 100% coverage. As of filming, the municipal government has been actively adding sidewalks, replacing pipes, and repaving bumpy roads to all remaining roads that need the extra care. It's not a transit paradise. For instance, Metrotown would perform way better with vast connectivity to the surrounding Metro Vancouver region. Convenience could very much be improved with more service, coverage, and more rapid transit options, connecting in and outside Highgate. Therefore, transportation is a B.
To put it simply, if you didn't move here 30 years ago, you should consider another neighborhood. The average income versus house prices in this neighborhood are absolutely insane. Here's why.
A single-family home costs on average $2 million. Apartment pricing is dependent on the size and amount of stock available, but around $625,000 is the range for the minimum 1-bed, 1-bath. While there are non-market rentals such as this BC housing complex that is going to be rebuilt very soon, the wait list is going to be over a decade, and they have lots of rules and regulations that some residents don't follow. Other than just liking the neighborhood itself, Metrotown nearby has similarly priced units and arguably better neighborhood to live in, with a vast transportation and food options. The affordability of the neighborhood is not exclusive to Highgate. The entire Metro Vancouver region has the same affordability crisis, thus outside the scope of this video. Nonetheless, the affordability is a good F.
As mentioned earlier, sidewalk and road design in the neighborhood play a role in reducing potential accidents. However, it's not a foolproof from human error, and being a pedestrian, or any form of transportation for the matter, can be risky if you're not paying attention. I give this section a B because a 15-minute city should have higher quality safety measures. Not to say that the current transportation is bad for the size of the area, but many of the safety measures are built to fix driver negligence, but doesn't solve the issue of trying to prioritize active transportation over car travel for a truly safer neighborhood.
To end off, Highgate is a fine neighborhood with many shops and services and has the potential to become a true 15-minute city. While there are many things that need to be better, such as affordability of the neighborhood, majority of what makes a great 15-minute city is not too far from reality in Highgate. I hope that more ambition and more will to improve the neighborhood will fill in the remaining gaps that currently exist.
Overall, Highgate is a solid B, and can improve in ways only limited to our imagination. Maybe we can start by getting past the Highgate.